Hi there everybody, my name is Kate and welcome to my channel, Chinergy Awakens Naturally. So I wanted to share a story with you today. That's what I do, is I apply my spiritual knowledge, my gnosis, etc. to my everyday life, because we're spiritual 24 hours a day. We are spiritual creatures 24 hours a day in that timeless thing. So I like to look at my life and see, how is my walk going? How's my faith going? How's my, ascension process, my journeying? How's my spiritual stuff looking and feeling? And that can be had by interfacing with the environment in a very conscious way and understanding and feeling into it and wondering, what am I curious about? So to that end, I look for places where I really am starting to see, major changes in how I feel, and how I feel whenever I'm around someone that makes me uncomfortable is usually what I'm, training in on, because that's the sensation that disturbs me, and, I want to move that away from me and, change what I'm doing so that I'm not really hanging out in a vibe that just doesn't feel comfortable to me. So part of my daily life is to keep very conscious and mindful of how I'm moving and what I'm thinking, being very conscious of, how I'm working with my environment, my energy, and my own body, etc. And so that's the first thing. That's who I am. That's what I do, is I look to be a better human every day that I wake up, better than, what I could be in that moment. Not better than yesterday, better than 3 years ago. Not that comparison, because that gets too complicated and too comparative study ish right away. So I just like to say I'm going to be a better human than to choose to continue mouthing off about that. Or I'm going to be a better human today and I'm going to choose to let that slide. Or I'm going to be a better human today and choose to be right up in somebody's grill with, no, that won't work. You're going to need to stop that right now. Whatever it takes to show up being a better human who communicates more clearly, who communicates in a better heart-mind coherence, so that I can actually not feel triggered and, be wanting to punish people who are stupid and in my way, or feel like I need to shrink down because somebody else seems like they've got more something than I do. There's that comparative study not going well. And so part of that best place where I can show up being me is to start with me and be okay with me, and then take that everywhere else that I go, because I'm already with me. And if I get my standard right there, then everywhere I go sets the standard for what my expectation is of how I'm going to interact and interface with my environment. Anything that feels weird, there's my clue of that doesn't feel good. Then it is incumbent upon me to figure out why. So part of what I do during the week is I work with prisoners. I talk about them a lot because I learned so much from them. They are amazing. And I genuinely I love my work there. It's profound. It's amazing. There's, of course, just like general society, there are men that I'm talking to that are, doing that with their eyeballs, like, I'm just here to get the check, on the off on my class. There are those because it's a cross section of society. It just happens to be in prison. And yes, there's going to be some clunks in there that won't really be invested in the class, to be understood. You also have people, and this is what I think is less known and understood and actually validated, into the regular world, is that we have a bunch of folks that are sitting in prisons everywhere, actual prisons, not just their mind prison, who are far more advanced and far more ready to accept what I'm saying to them about taking personal responsibility, so that you can then have your personal freedom and your sovereignty. Some of these men, a lot of the men that I work with, they're in reentry programs because they're going to be turned back, into their community at some point. And the best chance they have is to learn a different dance move than what you were doing before, because you danced ugly enough to get you here. This is like the dancing ugly dance off up in here where you live. You must have done something to make it to the All-Stars here. So whatever that ugly dancing was, it probably went with ugly crying too. So let's not do that anymore. Well, that's not going to be just a lickety split thing that happens. However, the fact is that I go in there every week and I have eyeballs that are engaged. The ones that are right there. The ones that aren't, they're very, respectful. However, either not understanding, not caring, or whatever, and that's fine. However, I want you to know the bulk of the class is trained in on the conversation, because they want to know how not to ugly dance anymore. It seems pretty obvious. Well, just don't do that again. Well, if we don't really have another path to take, then we're likely to just take another path going in a similar direction of wrong. So I like to give people enough information that, you want to make a major life change? then you have to make a major life change in your thinking, because major life changes don't happen wishing, hoping, and doing a Dusty Springfield song, wishing, hoping, and praying that would happen. And all you have to do is believe that you need to make a major change, and then we're going to step out with the actual steps of doing that, which is far more impactful to help people redirect. Why are you going down this road? And let's come back over here and have a clean discussion about why you're ugly dancing. Who taught you to dance like that? How did you learn? Why did you learn? Etc. And encourage people to get back on their own plate with, your dinner's here. Keep your eyes on your own plate. Keep your eyes on your own homework, and, keep to yourself. And I just want you to know that every week I go in there and I have at least one person that I make eye contact with. Usually it's at least 10 or 20, because I see the entire unit, when I'm in there, and I have other class participants from previous classes that I've taught, and they'll come up and let me know where they are in their process. And I've had a few that went to SHU, which is special housing unit. That means they boo-booed, they did something wrong, and you're in the clink of the clink. That's not good. However, I also knew when the CEO told me that today that, oh, I know, okay, I got it. I remember. And that doesn't surprise me, because that was somebody that really wanted to be able to dance this differently, and he just did not have enough grip and growl in him to be able to make that happen without being too angry and triggered and everything else. However, he came to me in that condition, and he just wasn't in a spot where he was really going to be able to do much with that, and that's unfortunate. However, the rest of his class, probably 8 out of the 10, I see them routinely every week. And every week I see at least 10, 20 people, as I said, across an entire unit that I walk through and speak to them and say, how you doing? How's your book? How about that? How about that? And I want to tell you that they are getting it. People in prisons everywhere, whether they're in their mind or in their physical location, people are not disposable because of their location or their station in life. They're just not. We can't toss people off. These are beautiful men that I'm speaking to, the ones that are really right there. They're showing me the most beautiful parts of themselves, and that part is the one that's vulnerable enough to sit in the class and talk about things that cannot be easy given their address. That is a social system that is incredibly complex, and it looks nothing at all like the civilian sector. Once we move into that environment, we're on their terms. Me anyway, I'm on their terms. And I understand that because I'm coming in as a non-threatening party. However, I see and I observe these people are up against walls everywhere. And I had a man that took class 2 classes ago, and every week he comes up when he's on the unit. He'll come over and he'll say, hey there, Miss Kate, how you doing? I go, what's your latest book? This man wanted to know about Atlantis. He wanted to know about starseeds. He wanted to know about light workers. And I said, wow, how do you know that? I mean, just out of curiosity, man, aren't you sitting here? Am I still in the prison? Am I still at the penitentiary? Yes. We have people in their brilliance that are sitting in places where you would never even stop to think that they would be there. However, they are there. And that's because these people, whoever they are, I'm just happening to reference, some federal prisoners at the moment. However, please don't ever discount people. Please don't ever discount, a group or a sect or a part of society. Do not divide and conquer unnecessarily. I don't like to divide and conquer at all. And when I separate from people, I don't mean to divide from them. I mean, we're going to need to separate, until we can uncluster all of this. And perhaps if we can bring that back into, an integration that is here with us in this way, great. If not, you'll integrate into where you best belong, and as will I. And because I trust that, I do believe that people will get their tribes pulled together just by being given the information wherever they're standing, wherever they're willing to receive it, whether it's in a federal prison or my family of origin home, or, at my job, or wherever it is on a basketball court at a pickup game I just happen to stop and watch, or whatever. There's people that are in their brilliance waiting to be kind of helped with, and this is how we do this, and we're not going to dance this way. We're going to change the steps by changing our mind, changing how we think, changing what we're willing to believe, changing make changes, and it's not about getting stuck on is it good enough and all of that other stuff. I saw a magnificent change in the gentleman's eyes today, that he's at least my age, and I don't know what he's in for. None of these guys, I don't get into their background, because I don't want to have some possibility that I can taint my work because I get triggered by something unnecessarily. If I leave that's just information you don't need to know, Kate. Why would you be knowing things that could possibly create an overtone in the conversation when you really need to bring them clean, new dance moves? And somehow, you might be willing to possibly have a thought in your mind in the subconscious or whatever that might not be fully dealt with. Let's not, not in an active situation like that, where these people are in crucial need of help, assistance, and a new way of looking at life, because they're bottom rung. They were bottom rung before they got into prison, and they're going to be bottom rung, bottom of the bottom rung by the time they get out. And anybody that would tell me, well, that's what they deserve, etc., well, then I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to people who understand the long game here is to help people find their way back home. And the people that we're not going to be doing that together. That's not happening with us specifically. However, the kindest thing that I'm going to do is to be clean and honest with you and separate out whenever this just is not going to form up into something you don't want to. You want to go to the special housing unit instead. Even though I see the pain, even though I understand how it's coming and why it's there and all of that, I have to let people make their decisions, from the people in my, immediate circle, to the people in a prison, to the people in a country around the world, or to the people at a church that I don't attend. It's none of my business except what is. And when I teach people the key to this, a lot of it, 1111, is most everything is not your business. The only thing that is your business is you, and what is your business of you, and why, what I need, what about me is willing to let me be busy over there on somebody else's homework with my eyes, trying to cheat, or worse, trying to snitch stuff off their plate when they're trying to eat their dinner.